so kind, staring out into space, asking God to hear my case, trying to think of all things past. How long will my memory last? But purple angel, purple angel, purple angel, you're next to me.
Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer's Speaks Radio. I'm your host and the founder of Alzheimer's Speaks, Lori LeBay. Before we get started with our show today, which is going to be a really interesting conversation about the Montessori method and you know, how that affects life and how it can enhance things, I always like to tell our new listeners a little bit about us here. Bottom line, Alzheimer's Speaks is an advocacy-based company, and we provide multiple platforms to shift our dementia care culture from crisis to comfort worldwide. So we have this platform here, which is our radio. We have a blog. We do interviews with what I call the true experts, those actually diagnosed with the disease, called Dementia Chats, which are really informative as well. We do a lot of speaking and training and consulting. And, you know, this fall, we're actually going to be doing a cruise for people with dementia and their families to kind of rejuvenate their souls and help them live life better with the disease. So we're very excited about that. We also believe at our heart and soul level that joining forces is really the only way we're going to be able to really push forward with making change in our care culture. And that's one of the things I love about being able to be in the position I am, where I get to interview people all over the world, from those diagnosed to family members to business professionals, researchers, movie directors, authors. The list goes on in terms of who has been affected by this disease and who is really out there powering change and talking about the needs. So we just feel honored to be able to do that. We also have to thank our audience because, you see, because of all of your likes, your clicks, and your shares with our variety of content that we push out, you've got us recognized as the number one influencer online, according to ShareCare and Dr. Oz. And Maria Shriver this fall just recognized us as a architect of change for humanity, which is pretty humbling, to say the least. And that would not have happened without all of you recognizing the fact that you all have spheres of influence, people who need information, people who, you know, might be in your sphere and you don't even know that they're dealing with this disease because so many people still don't talk about it. But the more information we can have out there and accessible, the more likely they're going to grab it when they need it. So again, I thank you, and I hope that you will continue to push out the information that we share, because that's why we do it. I also want to mention that, you know, you as a listener may be our next guest. So if you think you've got a story to tell, you know, contact me at 651-748-4714. That's 651-748-4714. Or you can always reach out to me via the website at lori@alzheimersspeaks.com as well. Last, I just want to give a shout out to a couple of organizations that I work with, and I just really love what they're doing. One is the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation out of Arizona, and they have kind of more of a holistic approach to the disease. So they have various pillars, like for exercise, meditation, nutrition, that can really help you move forward in working with this disease. The other is called the Call Alert Center, and they are a fantastic company that is very reasonable to protect your loved one with dementia. They also have systems for pets and kids and business professionals that travel. But bottom line, if anybody goes missing, you can go in and establish a kind of a social media presence that is private, and they put it into a flyer format. And then if there's an issue, you're prepared, and they push it out within 10 minutes of notification, and they work with with the police and everything. And it's just another great way to sleep a little better at night if you've got some concerns that something like that might happen. What else can I tell you here? I think that's it for right now. Let's get into our conversation about what does a Montessori-inspired lifestyle really look like, and how does that work? And today we are so lucky to have Cameron Camp back with us. He is a noted psychologist specializing in applied research in gerontology, and he currently serves as the Director of Research and Development for the Center for Applied Research in Dementia. Cameron gives workshops on designing cognitive and behavior interventions for dementia internationally, and so we're really excited to have you back with us, Cameron. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you, and thanks for the chance to be back with you.
Well, great. At his side, we have Elizabeth Kaufman, who is the Regional Director of Life Enrichment with the Goodman Group. And she has a strong background in recreational therapy and memory care. And Elizabeth currently works with Dr. Camp to bring the Montessori-inspired lifestyle to several of their memory care communities. So I'm really excited to hear not only about the method, but how it's applied actually in memory care communities. So welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I'm going to start with my first question to Cameron. Can you tell us what exactly is the Montessori-inspired lifestyle?
Right. Well, this is an approach to providing care for persons with dementia, and it's based on the Montessori educational system. So initially, we're looking at some core values that sort of go through everything that's done in this approach. And the core values are respect, dignity, and equality, with the idea being that we want to treat a person with dementia the way we would want to be treated. We want to create the place to live where we would want to live, and that's the standard. The idea is that a person with dementia will live in a home where they know their neighbors, where they are part of a community, and they're connected to the family and the outside world. So basically, it's about creating a place for persons with dementia to live, which is exactly the kind of place that any person would want to live. It's also about creating what we call resident-driven communities. The idea is that within the Montessori-inspired lifestyle, you want to enable residents as much as possible, persons with dementia, to be able to decide what activities they're going to do, their schedules, have input on menu, to decide where they want to go for outings, to decide what sort of social concerns they would like to support, what sort of activism they would like to support, to be able to be involved in their own entertainment, to be able to welcome people into the community, and to be able to memorialize people after they pass on. And so once again, the model for memory care is based on how anyone would want to live. Anyone feels better if they know their neighbors, if they feel part of a community, if they feel in control of their lives. And so this is the core of the Montessori-inspired lifestyle. And it emphasizes the capabilities that people have rather than the disabilities. How can we enable people with the strengths that they still have wherever they are in their journey to be able to contribute and to be a member of the community?
And I love that philosophy of focusing on what they can do instead of what they can't do, and noting that they deserve, the respect and dignity and quality of life that we all do. None of that should change because we get sick. And it saddens me out there that, that is such a big hurdle that we really have to tackle and get people to understand that it doesn't have to be big and complicated to fulfill that with somebody with dementia. Can you share with us a little bit about how you set that up in a community in terms of the, how do you train the staff, and how do you really get that implemented in a community like the Goodman Group?
Certainly. A key element of this approach is to give individuals choice throughout the day, in any interaction, whenever possible. It's about enabling people to be able to make choices, because sometimes when people come to memory care, it's been a long time since they've been empowered to make those kind of decisions. We talk about different models of memory care that are out there, and two of the primary ones are a hospital model where a person with dementia is viewed as a patient, and so they're focused. The focus is on the illness that they have. Or another model is that of the hotel. So the idea is that a person with dementia is a guest, and you have to do everything that you can for them. But the catch is no one lives or wants to live in a hospital or in a hotel. You stay in a hotel, you stay in a hospital until you can go home. And home is where people live. That's where you have choice and you have control of your life. So, for example, Maria Montessori said, everything that you do for me, you take away from me. Mm-hmm. And everything turns on that. It means that the job of staff members becomes that of enabling persons with dementia to do as much for themselves and for each other as possible. We have to remember that in residential care, we are guests in the home of the residents, and we have to act like good guests. Montessori also said we do our job best when they do not know we are present. And so this really changes the focus of what a staff member's job is. I love it when staff members tell me, let me tell you what our residents were able to do today without me. And so it's about preparing residents to be able to do as much for each other and for themselves as possible. I remember I was in a Goodman Group memory care residence, and after the training, they have a hydration station where you have water like in a hotel with fruit in it, mm-hmm. and they put up a sign which said, help yourself. And as soon as the sign was put up, a resident in a wheelchair said, and Elizabeth was watching this with me, resident said, well, finally, wheels herself up, pours her own water. Another resident comes up to it and says, anybody else want some water? And started pouring water for other people. Now they have a fruit committee, and they decide what fruit they want in the water, and they prepare it the night before. They decide they don't like lemon and lime because it's too bitter, so they'll go for the strawberries and the pineapple. And as a result, the hydration station has to be refilled every afternoon. People are drinking the water, and as a result, that significantly has decreased urinary tract infection because people are drinking and hydrating. So that's an example of how empowering residents to do things for themselves and for each other was able to have a really interesting impact, not only on the behavior of residents, but also on their health.
Well, that is wonderful. Now, Elizabeth, I'm just going to ask you, in terms of, implementing something like that, a lot of people are going to say, well, what's the cost to a company? But the hydration system was already there. It was just really enabling and letting residents know that they could freely get up and serve themselves. Am I reading that correctly?
You are reading that correctly. The cost after initial training is fairly minimal, or can be fairly minimal. Staff needs to purchase or create signage, name tags, name tents. There's a lot of different pieces that they can create for very little dollars that can be very successful with the team, with the residents.
Well, and I would.
And what's really
go ahead.
What's really nice with the residents create for instance, the name tents themselves, mm-hmm. and then the name tents are at the tables for meals, mm-hmm. so people know where to sit, and they begin to call each other by name. And when you're referred to by name, it's a very different thing than if people don't know your name.
Yep.
And so that's another example of creating a community, of enabling people circumvent memory deficits, and with practice, they begin to know other people's names.
Mm-hmm.
Starting off by having name tents, and then people know where to sit, but also they get into that practice of referring to each other by name.
Well, that's interesting. One of the things I was thinking was, they could participate in making those nameplates and name tags and things like that, which is exactly what you said. Because so often we just get in this rut of, we're supposed to do for others. I know even when we did the memory cafes, we would, as facilitators, we'd get there early and we'd arrange the tables and we get the name tags out and we'd set all up. And then one day we just looked back and thought, they keep coming early and earlier because they want to help, and we keep taking it away from them. So, we stopped doing that. And it got to the point where they would even start giving people notice in the coffee shop, hey, it's our time in 15 minutes now, but it was very empowering, and it was, it helped us out. So we didn't feel so harried, but that's part of feeling part of a community. And I don't think that we even realize that we're taking stuff away from people. Another experience I had personally with my parents, we were going on a trip on a cruise, and I packed their bags. My dad had brain cancer. My mom had dementia. And I packed a huge suitcase, because back in the day you could take a huge suitcase. and it was too big and it was too heavy for my dad to carry. And I just melted and wanted to cry, because I remember watching him feeling so out of place that he couldn't do kind of the masculine chore of carrying the luggage. And I easily could have packed more than one bag so that everybody could have carried some luggage. But it didn't even occur to me till I saw those sad eyes and saw how really hurt he was, and disappointed that he wasn't able to do that. I kind of slapped him in the face with that, and that wasn't my intent. And I think many times It's not people's intent, and we don't even see the signs until we actually consciously, a lot of times through training, become aware to look for them, because we're so busy doing what we're doing all the time.
It's a paradigm shift. I mean, it really is. And but it also makes for a better job, a more satisfying job for staff. Residents are happier also. They have the feeling of accomplishment. For example, at one Goodman residence, there's a woman who likes to, her job in the morning is to put a banana next to each plate. Mm-hmm. And that is her reason to get out of bed in the morning. Mm-hmm. And for her, this is like a thing to look forward to. This is a responsibility. Now, if staff did that instead, they would take that away from her.
Yep.
And why do something like that? Or we were in Minneapolis at a Goodman residence, and the residents in memory care decided to put on a meal for their family. Mm-hmm. And they sent out invitations to the family members, and they made the food for the meal, and it was a huge turnout. It's very different when residents do the invitation to the family members, and resident led the singing and the entertainment. And I looked at the executive director, and we saw this room full of people chatting, smiling, eating, and I said, where is the dementia? Mm-hmm. Where is the dementia? Because Montessori said when the environment supports an individual, when it enables them to demonstrate capacity and to have a role, you see a process that she called normalization. And I think it's the perfect term. Our job is to create normalizing environments for persons with dementia, to circumvent the deficits and enable that normal person to be there. And it's what anyone wants. Everyone wants to feel competent, to feel normal. And when we can do that, it's an incredible gift that can be given.
Yeah, when we get out of our own way to do something like that. Because so many times we're so busy, and I think both families and professionals do this. We have kind of our checklist, and we don't even realize that we get filled every time we check something off. It's kind of an unconscious thing, but we're getting our soul and our needs met by accomplishing something. And we don't really look at how we're doing that or how it's affecting others. We just know this is an important job that we have, and we want to do the best that we can with it. And we so often, I think, are trained, since we're little, that in order to fix something, that means you have to identify a problem. And to me, the Montessori approach isn't so much looking for the problem, it's looking at enhancing what is.
Yes,
and
yes. Montessori said that it's not that we lack time, we lack enough patience.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so how can you create environments where you enable a person with dementia to be able to accomplish something in their own time, rather than doing it for them because we can do it more quickly or more efficiently, or because we have the checklist that we have to go down, and if we don't get that done, then we haven't done a good job. It's about a different way of thinking.
Mm-hmm. Well, and don't you think, with that whole process, we use, and we've been trained and been told that, when you're dealing with, a chronic illness such as dementia, routines really help. But what we don't discuss is whose routines need to change. We always focus on their routines need to change, even though we know it's easier for us to change. So to me, I think that's a big hurdle, too, to get people to look at that differently.
Yes. I mean, if we're going to have person-centered care and person-centered communities, who is the person who's at the center?
Mm-hmm.
It's all about putting the person with dementia at the center and making that term come alive. And so we should revolve around them. We should accommodate ourselves to the person that we're supposedly providing care for.
Mm-hmm. One of the things, and Elizabeth, I'll throw this to you, kind of as that life enrichment person is, and a lot of people will argue with this with me, and feel free to do that, but I personally don't even like the term person-centered. I would love to see that be relationship-based care, because to me, then we get into honest conversations of what's really going on, instead of reverting to these roles of, I'm the caregiver or the care partner, I'm the empowered one, and, I'm doing this all for you. We get back to it really being a relationship, and then having a discussion, if we're able to, or reading nonverbal language to get that communication as to how is this really going, instead of just assuming what we're doing is the right way to do it. What are your thoughts, Elizabeth?
Absolutely. No, I fully agree with you. I think person-centered care does bring a little bit of a stigma that it's still caregiver and resident instead of just people working together in a home to have a sense of community. Great example of that, Cameron had mentioned the West Park team in Billings, Montana. They've recently implemented Montessori. They're a Goodman Group team. And they sent a video to me of a resident at mealtime. They use placemat templates. So it has an outline of a plate, an outline of a cup, a napkin, and then the knife, fork, and spoon. And this resident was utilizing those placemat templates that were set at everyone's chair to set out the silverware for the meal. And the resident, as they're filming this, the other resident sitting across from this gentleman who's setting the table, starts to stand up on his own. And the staff, instead of sitting him back down or asking him to sit back down, they just let him go. And he stood up on his own, and he reached across the table. And it took him a little bit of time to get himself stood up, but he reached across the table, and he grabbed a knife, a fork, and a spoon. And he very slowly, on his own placemat template, set out his knife, his fork, and his spoon for the meal, and then he sat back down in his chair. And the staff just let him do it all on his own, took his time, but it was so clear that he wanted that sense of empowerment and that sense of inclusion. He saw his neighbor across the way setting the table, and he wanted to participate and join in and have that sense of responsibility and meaningful purpose. And it was just such a beautiful moment to see it happen.
That's very cool. And I think so many times we don't realize, because, when you're a well-able-bodied person, you don't appreciate all those little things that fill you up and make you feel like you belong. Today on our Dementia Chats video, we were talking about dementia and depression, and they were talking about feeling part. If it's wherever they're at, they just want to belong. They want to feel like they can participate and still give back and be appreciated, and to be able to appreciate themselves for the skill sets that they have, because they don't want to be a burden to anybody else. And we don't think about all those little things that we take for granted. And I think it's something that we have to talk about more. We need to hear the voice of those people. We need to hear about examples like both of you are giving, in terms of how that can bring somebody a sense of joy, a sense of peace, a sense of comfort, a sense of empowerment, because those are all things everybody in life wants, not just a person with dementia.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a hospitality committee at a Goodman memory care residence in Naples. And what the committee does is they make get well cards for other residents from memory care who've gone to the hospital. And then for an outing, they bring the get well cards to the resident who's in the hospital, deliver them personally, sing for the person. And so, if you or I are ill and we go to the hospital and we're visited by friends, it's a real, usually a pick-me-up. And this is what they do for their friends now. And what's interesting is they noticed other people often don't get visitors in the hospital, so now they bring extra cards to visit with other people and to sing them songs as well. And that generosity of spirit just spontaneously kicked in, and so it's always an evolving process. You're absolutely right. It's all about relationship. Relationship is the core of having a community, and that's the idea. The model is one of a community where people know each other, and where they greet new members who come to the community. I remember I was in a Goodman residence in South Dakota, and I was coming back to visit after they'd had initial training a few months earlier, and a resident I was sitting down next to a resident. Another resident came over and was getting ready to sit down with her walker, and the first resident said, "May I help you?" and called her by name. And the second resident said, "Yes, I could use some help," and called her by name, the first one. And then when the second resident sat down, the first said, "Would you like your walker in front of you or to the side?" So they had that conversation. And then a third resident came to the first one later and said, "I noticed you helping people here, and I just wanted you to know that was appreciated." Calling the first resident by name, the first one calls the third one by name and says, "Thank you. I appreciate your telling me that." And that is what dementia can be. It's all about creating the kind of place we would want to live, where we know our neighbors and where we help each other, and where that is recognized and appreciated.
Very much so. Let's talk a little bit, Cameron, when you go out and do some training, what kind of response are you getting from staff? And, is there pushback, or are they excited about it? Is there a transformation that you see? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, the answers are yes, yes, and yes. So initially people are skeptical. And even though we show videos, the usual response is, yes, that works for people, say, in Australia, but wouldn't work here. That works for people on the West Coast, but won't work on the East Coast. That works in another place in town, but not in our place. So in truth, people have to see this working with their particular residents to really get buy-in. But the good news is this is something that's universal. The challenges in caring for a person with dementia are universal also. And the nice thing is we've been doing this internationally for some years now. So we have techniques that work. And what happens then is that we get an awful lot of enthusiasm, and people take it and start running with it and making it their own. They adapt it to their particular residents, to their particular culture, and it's very exciting. In Switzerland, for instance, in Lausanne, my wife and I were there December of 2015 in a memory care residence, and two ladies read us a welcoming speech in English. It was a French-speaking part of Switzerland, and they'd written it in their English language class, which they had begun taking there as part of their activities available in memory care, led by another memory care resident who was multilingual. And the last words that they said to us in the speech were, and we thank you for giving us back our liberty. And so what happens then is when staff see residents normalizing, they get excited. And, that's always the key. Once they see what a person with dementia is capable of, when you focus on their capabilities, when you focus on their strengths, when you enable normalization to start taking place, that's when a corner is turned. And so it's a different approach. It's change. And I always say, I love to work with people who have very little experience in dementia because we don't have to untrain them. Mm-hmm. We start off by saying, why not? And we just, jump on it. So, for example, in Oregon, there's a place where they have a beer-making club in a memory care residence. And they make very good beer. They win prizes. And now they have a local beer-making group in the community who meets on the memory unit once a month. And they collaborate on coming up with formulas for beer. And you've got people with piercings and tattoos talking to people with dementia. And it simply doesn't matter because they're interested in what kind of hops to use. Mm-hmm. And so it's about creating, once again, this sense of normalization. And when staff see this sort of thing happening, that's when they get on board. And we always say it takes a miracle. They have to see miracles, but the good news is it's very easy to work miracles, because if you believe that a person with dementia cannot learn anything new, they'll never get better, you have to do everything for them, then the things we're talking about are miracles. They shouldn't be possible. And yet this is what begins to happen very, very quickly when people start applying, the principles of demonstrate what you want a person to do before you ask them to do it. Let them make choices and see what happens. Empower them. Focus on what they can do. Invite as opposed to tell. Empower. When that starts happening, suddenly they see transformations in their residents, and that's the good stuff. And we always focus on a train-the-trainer approach. We want people to take the training and make it their own. So within the Goodman Group, they have their internal training in the Montessori-Inspired Lifestyle that we've assisted them in creating. And so they're able to train within the organization, train new staff when they come on board. It's about culture change on a system-wide scale that their organization has committed to and has set as a top priority. And so that's what's really exciting from my point of view. When people I haven't met are able to create these kind of amazing outcomes, or people who we've trained but I haven't seen in months have come up with new ideas and are making it their own. That's really exciting. That means that this approach has longevity and sustainability and can be applied across a variety of different settings. The other thing is that when it starts in memory care, what begins to happen is that people in assisted living and people in independent living, residents and staff begin to say, well, we'd like this too. Everyone would prefer to have a home in a community. Everyone would prefer to have choice. Everyone would prefer to focus on capability and be part of a community. And so the real secret is that this is just a way into the system. It's about a way of living, and it's not just about dementia. It's about, again, respect, dignity, equality, the values that really guide civilization.
So let me ask you this, Elizabeth. What, because I'm amazed sometimes at families' reactions when you are trying to do something very normal for somebody with dementia. And sometimes there's a lot of pushback. Well, they can't do that. Have you seen that, or have you found that your families are really embracing the changes that you're implementing with the Montessori lifestyle?
I think it's very similar to what Cameron mentioned with the staff. They almost have to see it to believe it. We have a lot of families who have heard stories about their loved one, heard that mom is setting tables or is participating in a program, leading bingo, for example, and they don't quite believe it. They're in a little bit of disbelief. Well, my mom hasn't done things like that in years, or my dad never would do something like that. And it's important that they see it and see that their loved one still has those strengths and those capabilities. It's very empowering for them and empowering for their relationship. We've had a lot of almost reunions between families and loved ones, residents, because they see that there is something there still, whereas before they felt like they'd lost that loved one entirely. It's very heartwarming to see. A great example of it, we had at West Park Village in Billings, another video that came through, and it was a son dropping off his mom, who was just moving into the memory care. She was in a wheelchair, and very quiet woman, and she walked in, or she was wheeled in by her son, I should say, to the lunchroom and was instantly greeted by all of the residents who had gathered in the lunchroom to welcome this new resident. And they all welcomed her with a song that they had written about their building. And then the residents, one by one, greeted her and shook her hand and introduced themselves, told her their name. One resident had a gift bag with her with goodies that their greeting committee, all of the residents, had chosen to put in there. And on the outside of the goodie bag was a small teddy bear and a balloon. And it was just really sweet to see that gift be right there and to have her instantly be welcomed by all of these residents. She had a welcome sign on her placemat at lunch. Her fellow residents showed her where she was going to be sitting at mealtime. They welcomed her into their family. They specifically said, welcome to the family. It was so beautiful. And, to be a son, to be a family member, a loved one, dropping off a person in that situation that is traditionally so difficult, to bring your loved one to a facility to reside, having that be your welcome is an extremely beautiful moment to see, okay, they are going to be welcome. This is a sense of community. They're not here to live out their days. They're here to live. I think that's a very empowering thing for families to see as well.
Very cool. It reminds me of, especially for older adults, the day of the red wagon, where there was always someone who welcomed somebody into the neighborhood. You don't see that so much anymore. But where someone was greeted and just, answered their questions and helped them get settled and comfortable. What a cool thing to do in a community, to have that kind of camaraderie. And a lot of them, I'm sure, are thinking, I remember what it was like walking in this door, being scared, and not wanting the next guy to feel that way. And like you said, what it does for a family is huge.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a massive, massive thing. Very, very neat. Now, Elizabeth, I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to ask you, because I know that you're using this system, the Montessori lifestyle system at Chandler Place. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Chandler Place is our first assisted living community here in Minnesota, managed by the Goodman Group to implement Montessori. Goodman Group as a whole community, or as a whole company, is the first senior living provider nationally to implement Montessori at this level. There's several other senior living communities who offer one-time trainings or have advertised the Montessori approach. And we just feel that it's really important to have that ongoing partnership with Dr. Camp and that ongoing opportunity to bounce ideas off of him and get feedback and continue to advance the program. It's really important element for sustainment of the program. So Chandler Place is our first assisted living community in Minnesota to offer that. We also have Montessori implemented in several other communities around the United States, Naples, Florida, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and Billings, Montana.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, that's exciting. What was the staff's attitude with when you're the first in the country to do something like that? Was there excitement or reservation?
I think a little of both. The Chandler Place team was very, very excited to have the opportunity. They understood that it was, a big opportunity, but I think that sense of culture change, that mindset shift that has to happen in order to really implement this program and embrace it it's a lot to take on as a team. You've really got to be a strong team and be in a great place. That's certainly where the Chandler Place team was. They were ready for it. And they took it on. They kind of stuck a toe in the water at first and tried a couple of things. And when they started to see that what they were trying was successful, they took it a little farther and a little farther and a little farther. And it has grown so much. They've got so many amazing things happening there. I think they've really started to see the benefit. And, it was interesting. I was there for a follow-up visit, and one of the CNAs came up to me and she said, mealtime is my favorite time of day as a CNA because I can step back and I can just take an opportunity to meet with my team, my fellow CNAs, talk about the day, get some updates because the residents are all setting tables. They're pouring juice. They're helping each other to the table. They're greeting each other. They take over mealtime. And she said, at first it was so scary to let them take over and let them have that opportunity. I felt like I wasn't doing my job, but then I realized I'm doing my job by letting them help. I'm empowering them, and that is my job. My job isn't to do it for them.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a really cool moment. The residents there had a great opportunity to just put on a family night. They sent invitations out. All of the residents signed the invitations and sent them to their loved ones. And they hosted a potluck. The residents prepared roast beef and potatoes and carrots. They prepped all of the food. They made these homemade pumpkin bars from scratch and homemade bread, and they served this wonderful meal to their loved ones. So how many people that have a resident or a loved one living in a memory care can say that their loved one cooked them a meal?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just really, really cool moments happening. Chandler Place has done a great job.
Oh, wonderful. That's absolutely fantastic. Cameron, one of the things I wanted to ask you in terms of training, what does that entail in terms of if another community wants to institute this in terms of, timing and things like that? I'm not asking you to divulge your costs or anything, but how much time do you need with the staff to get this off the ground?
Yeah, we usually do a 2-day training as an initial training. And then it's open-ended if people want to take advanced training or not. There's a 2-day advanced training. We also have the option of coming back and doing site visits or not.
Mm-hmm.
But what we say is that we want, in our trainings, we want people from every department. So, for example, we want people from laundry. We want people from maintenance. We especially want people from dining services because it's about everyone having a role, everyone having a place in this process. So, for example, in Salem, Oregon, there was a guy who's head of maintenance department. He says, my job is this. I come in the morning and I greet my friends in the memory care. And then some guys come with me when I do my rounds, and they give me assistance. They give me suggestions. If a room has to be ready for someone to move in, we go and we do the checklist. I have meals with the residents. We have conversations. I take guys out to see my son's Little League baseball team for outings. And on weekends, I miss my friends. And so he says, it's the best job I've ever had. And, that's the idea. How can you empower, enable laundry staff to enable residents to put away their own clothes the way they would want to? Mm-hmm. How can you enable nurse assistants to enable residents to recover the capacity to brush their own teeth, to brush their own hair? Everyone is involved in it. And so that's a key element. And we say, we want a commitment. We want you to realize that you need to commit a year to this process. You have to go slowly. There'll be some things that are very interesting to happen right away, but you can't try to change an entire system overnight. It can't be done. So it's a step-by-step process like Elizabeth was talking about. And then we say, in a year will have passed whether you do anything or not. If you do nothing new, you'll be exactly as you are now a year from now. But if you go step by step and put together an action plan, I know that's the way it's done at Goodman, and plan what you'll be doing as you go forward, and look at the barriers and the challenges and how to get around them. It's an amazing transformation that you see over time. And we say a year, but sometimes it happens much more quickly. I know the Billings example that you were hearing about, I was there in February for the first time, and here we are in April. So that tells you how quickly that group was able to start making some amazing transformations.
Okay, wonderful. I can't believe our time has just flown by. We've only got less than 10 minutes left here. Cameron, is this approach being used in other countries and in other places within the U.S. besides the Goodman Group?
In other countries, we've done an awful lot of work in France. For example, the French government pays nursing homes to send staff to get trainings in non-pharmacologic treatment of dementia. Mm-hmm. They have to go to a list of approved trainings. At the top of the list is Montessori-Inspired Lifestyle. So it's really becoming a standard in that country. Being used extensively in Switzerland. We are doing some work now in Belgium. We've done some initial training in the Netherlands. We'll be in Italy and Spain this year, as well as an initial foray into Norway and Poland. We have people doing this work in Slovenia and Greece. And then we've done an awful lot of work with Alzheimer's Australia. They do, Alzheimer's Australia does Montessori-Inspired Lifestyle as part of their standard training for staff, as well as for family members. My wife and I were 8 weeks in Australia in 2013 on a project with Alzheimer's Australia and Monash University on how to enable family members to engage persons with dementia, especially if they're more advanced and have some agitation, how to get around that and to engage people. We also have a training partner in Singapore, and we've done some work in Taiwan. We have a training partner in Brazil, and that's all I can remember at this moment. In the U.S., we've got people who are applying this in Oregon, in Houston. We've done some work in Michigan as well, and then there are There are other places, but Denver, for example, and so it's being implemented. But the Goodman Group is the first to say, as a national organization, we are committed to making the Montessori-Inspired Lifestyle our national flagship, if you will, our national approach to memory care. And they're committed to rolling this out across all of their residences. That's the process that we're in right now. And that is amazing and incredibly exciting. And I feel so proud of the great work that they're doing. And you've already heard a few examples of that today.
Wonderful. Elizabeth, is there anything that you'd like to add? I'm just wondering if you feel that this is a good way to change the dementia care culture, and if so, if you can just kind of summarize why for our audience.
Absolutely. This approach, Montessori-Inspired Lifestyle, provides our staff with additional tools to utilize day-to-day in their positions, whatever that position is. As Cameron said, it's laundry, it's maintenance, nursing, recreation, it's everyone, dining. By using those principles, using those tools that they learn in the training, they foster that resident engagement, that social interaction, resident roles, a sense of community. You know, both the residents and the team members feel empowered to have that successful day, which is so important for both quality of life and quality care. The Montessori approach really teaches us to offer choice whenever possible and demonstrate tasks, break things down into steps, and match resident speed. So it's just really great toolbox for all of our team members to have, and it benefits everyone involved, family members included.
Well, that is wonderful. I really appreciate both of you taking the time with us. Cameron, any last tips that you want to give our audience, or maybe one last example?
In Neuchâtel, Switzerland, when a resident dies in memory care, they have a ceremony that they use to commemorate and celebrate that person's passing. They have a part of the garden that's sort of like a Zen garden. It's got sand and rocks, but the rocks have the name of a resident who has died and the date that they died. And when someone passes on, that rock with the resident's name and date of their death is put into the garden. They have a ceremony that the residents created. The family members come, and they're the ones who place the rock. And just as people are greeted when they come into a community, they are memorialized and remembered when they pass on. And it's about living. This is about a way of living. It's the kind of life we all want. And to be able to give that, to enable persons with dementia to live that kind of life, that's a blessing.
Very much so. Very much so. Now, Cameron, if people want to get a hold of you, they can go to your website, Center for Applied Research in Dementia, and that is CEN4ARD.com. That's CEN and the number 4 ARD.com. Or they can email you at Cameron@CEN4ARD.com as well. And if people want to talk with Chandler Place, the contact there would be Megan Moriarty, and her number is 612-788-7321. And Elizabeth, did you want to give any contact information out, or is it just best to go through Megan?
Best to go through Megan, absolutely. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Well, wonderful. Well, I thank you both for joining us. I know that you've got another meeting to hop into. And again, keep up the great work and keep me posted. I'd love to hear from you both again. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you. I just in wrapping up, I want to throw out a few more resources to our listeners. One is our dementia chats. If you go to Alzheimer's Speaks into our initiatives and projects page, you'll be able to see the latest dementia chats webinar that we did, and it was on how to communicate with people with dementia and how they want to be communicated with. With these chats, I always interview the experts, and I consider the experts those diagnosed. I will be out in Woodbury May 20th at St. Therese Senior Living doing a screening of his neighbor Phil, and in mid-June I'll be at the Leading Age Conference where we're also going to be doing a screening of his neighbor Phil. What else? We have all of our shows here on Alive and Social are archived, so you can go back for like 6 years worth of shows. Most recently, we just talked with somebody on creative engagement for those with dementia. And we also had on DAA, the Dementia Action Alliance, and talked about their conference that's going to be down in Atlanta, Georgia, coming June, called the Reimagine Life, where they're going to have not only professionals, but quite a few people with dementia participating in that conference as well. Oh, what else can I tell you? If you go to the blog, there's all kinds of information you can scroll through, from tips and some life stories, examples that I have there. There's also 20% off the 6th edition of the 36-hour day, which just became available here in April. And there's also some trial information that you'll be able to find. And don't forget, we are doing this just magnificent cruise November 11th through the 18th. And it's for people with early memory loss and their family and friends to come join us, and we'll kind of learn and relax and rejuvenate, have a lot of fun, give hope and support to one another, and it'll be a Caribbean cruise. So you can just, again, go to alzheimersspeaks.com to find more about that, and we would love to have you join us. In the meantime, have a fabulous week, and we'll talk soon.
Hi, this is Suzanne Newman, host of the Answers for Elders podcast and radio show. We are the North Star that guides you through the complicated journey of senior care with trusted experts in money, law, living solutions, and more. So join us on this station, your favorite podcast channel, or just go to AnswersForElders.com. Meet the Wayshowers who will help your journey go a lot easier.